What's up, everyone, and welcome to the 30th episode of the Control Freak Podcast. I am your host, Alex Blackard, or at LessAlex on Twitter. Make sure to follow me there. This is the only Magic the Gathering podcast devoted to all things Control in Pioneer and Modern. As always, we are sponsored by Solitary Pro and the patrons over at patreon.com. Shout out to our newest patron, Michael W. He is the newest patron at the highest level, and now if you become a patron at the highest level, you get a free donation deck whenever I stream. So make sure to check that out if you want to help support the podcast. Today, we are joined by none other than Star City Games Players Championship competitor, top 8 competitor, Zach Allen. Zach, how's it going?
Good, man. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, we've got a lot to talk about today. You had an incredible run this season on the SCG Tour, and you had a good run at the PC as well. We're going to dive into some questions about your season and your year, and then we're going to get into some metagaming about Modern, about the Bant Snowblade deck that you played, and a little bit about Pioneer and your thoughts on that blue-white control deck that's starting to pop up all over everywhere. So are you about ready?
Yeah, man, let's do it. Let's dive in.
Awesome. So first things first question I got for you, reflecting on the past year, simple question, what are you most proud of?
Ah, man, that's actually a pretty tough question. I feel like
it's simple, but it's pretty, yeah.
It is. Yeah, I mean, it could be a one-word answer, right? But definitely, I feel like I had like maybe 3 different moments in the year that really, I can look back on and say I was proud of this one or that one. But
yeah,
for me, I think honestly, looking back, the thing I'm most proud of is that my teammate Harlan taking the trophy in Dallas. That was so like midway through the year when Hogak was a deck and was like dominating the format. I had started experimenting with Wurza as a way to beat Hogak.
Yeah.
Pretty early, and I was scared to pick it up, but I worked with Harlan for a while on it. And he started having success with it. And then there was all this banning, and Dallas is the first event after Hogak.
Yeah.
And I remember just spending so much time testing for that event, working on making sure that this deck was great, having the 6 sideboard, all these plans. Worked with Harlan, and then Harlan took home the trophy. So that felt like the biggest win to me. I mean, I have some other events that felt like, I'm proud of as well, but that one we actually got the trophy, so feel like I'm most proud of that one, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's a huge moment too. Like you're working on this deck with your teammate, and it all paid off. You went against the grain too.
Well, also like the deck was semi-popular there, but none of the known players really were playing Urza for that event. It really picked up after it.
Yeah. And
I feel like that was the one where we were just ahead of the metagame by like a full week. Like we just had the best Urza deck in the room. I lost playing for top 8, ended up in top 16. Harlan wins it. It was just a really cool event.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. And that's a really cool moment for you to the fact that you say that is your most proud moment and you didn't even win the event. That speaks a lot to you, right? So that's awesome stuff. So flip side of that coin, looking forward, 2019 is basically over with in terms of like competitive. Looking forward to 2020, what are your goals for this season, this upcoming year?
Man, I don't know. 2020 is going to be a weird year because there's a lot of flux on what's happening at the actual pro level.
Yeah.
There is a lot of flux on, formats, just even at events like Pioneer.
Yeah, Pioneers.
Pioneer wasn't really a format until like the very end of this year, and it showed up at the Invitational, but it hasn't really had high-level events. It's had this weird weekly banning thing going on where it kind of feels like it's a real format, but also it feels like it's like in the beta stages or something, like being tested.
Oh, yeah. Trust me, having a podcast around that format and recording Sunday night is like
Ooh, yeah.
really rough. So we get to play the what's getting banned tomorrow game, and then like
Sure.
we get to see if we're right. But yeah, it's the banning thing is like cool. Like I see what they're trying to do, but like at the same time, it's like, whew, it's rough.
It is rough. I mean, I'm kind of happy they did it, honestly, because it
Yeah.
feels like now after the latest round that they kind of got all of the stuff that needed it and the format's really settled out. But we'll get to that later when we
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about
yeah.
Pioneer. Point is, it's hard to tell what's going to happen with that on this GP circuit. Is it going to be a success? How many tournaments are going to switch to that as a format? Is it going to be
Yeah.
as popular as Modern was? Is it going to be more popular than Modern? Is Modern losing popularity? Is it going to kill Standard? Like
Boy,
I have, I already have less events on my schedule for Standard, and that's one of my favorite formats. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all shakes out. But in terms of goals,
yeah.
I think, I mean, the one right now, just coming back from the Players Championship, losing my win in for top four, not getting a chance to win the title. I
Yeah.
think that's gonna be my number one goal going into the year. Um,
To win the PC.
yeah, I
That's
want to
the
come
goal.
back and win. I want to go back and win.
It's on wax. You got it on wax now.
Gotta
It's
gotta try. I mean, I've been there now. Last year was kind of like, can I do it? Do I have the chops for this? Am I, do I belong here? Now it's like,
yeah.
okay, I'm there. I was there. I was fighting. I almost won. Didn't quite get there, but I felt like I belonged, and now it's time to really, up my game another level and try and come back and win this. But
Yeah.
having said that, my goal last year was to become a gold pro, and I started the year as a silver pro. Went to one more Grand Prix and then never went to another one. So these things can change, but I think that's the goal right now.
Awesome. So taking it down next year, mark it on your calendars. Next December, you're gonna be the PC. Yeah.
Gonna try. I want that belt.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a whole nother podcast that I'm not gonna get into. But
Fair.
uh,
That's fair.
so the Bant Snowblade that you played in the Players Championship has been gaining a lot of popularity in Modern. Can you speak to how viable that deck is in the current metagame? Because like, obviously the Players Championship is hyper focused. I assume you probably know what a lot of these people are playing, but in an open meta like at a GP or at an SCG, do you think it's viable?
Well, okay, so it was a closed meta, right?
Yeah.
Like I know there's 15 people, but at the same time, I don't know what they're playing. Like I have an idea that these like certain people are inclined to play certain decks,
Sure.
and so we could cut out some range of decks from showing up or being insignificant enough that we don't plan for them, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's still Modern. Like if you show up with a glaring weakness in your deck and somebody correctly predicted that this deck would be well positioned, which makes it your glaring weakness, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna lose, and you're gonna lose to the people that made the good calls. So you can't. It's really hard in Modern to just have a deck that just is terrible against something and still expect to win. And honestly, I think this Bant deck is just a pillar of the format now at this point. Like I think it's
Okay.
one of the best decks in Modern. And I think there's different ways to build it. There's a lot of wiggle room with it. There's a lot of card, you can make it more aggressive, you can make it more controlling, you can make it, more rampy. There's a lot of ways you can go with this deck. But as for like, the closed meta, if you're asking me like what is different about this deck for that meta, we made it slightly worse to big mana. We kind of had this call that big mana would not be super prevalent.
Yeah.
And if you look at the field, it really wasn't. There was 2 big mana decks in a field of 16. So
Yeah.
I think it was a good call on our part. But the change is like, it wasn't a huge change. We really just cut Jace, which is one of the better cards in this deck against the big mana decks. It keeps you, finding counter spells to counter Karn and O-Stone and all of that, just grind through that.
Yeah.
But past that, the deck is just good. I think there was this kind of dichotomy in Modern for a while where it was like Urza was just the best deck, and then it was like, well, what beat Urza? And it was kind of Shadow. Shadow seemed like the best way to attack Urza because Damping Sphere, like the other decks that would beat Urza were really bad against Damping Sphere, and Damping Sphere is really good in an Urza deck because it's an artifact, all that. So
Yeah.
it was kind of just like there's this dichotomy of decks that beat Shadow and decks that beat Urza, and they lost to each, what if you beat Urza, you lost to Shadow, and if you beat Shadow, you lost to Urza. That was kind of where it was, and Shadow kind of beat Urza, but Urza was overall a better deck.
Yeah.
And when we were testing for the event, we could not find any deck that beat both of them. It took us, I don't know, we spent 3 weeks testing, going through every deck in the
Wow.
format, looking for anything that could beat it, and then we stumbled on this, and we looked at it, at first, and it's funny too because everyone's having the same reaction that we did right when we picked it up. And it was like, well, this deck doesn't look that good. It looks just kind of medium, right? Like there's just a bunch of medium cards, like Stoneforge Mystic, was a banned card, but it hasn't really done anything since it came off the list.
Yeah, we actually talked about that when the first time you were on the podcast too. It's just like it didn't really do much, but
it doesn't. It doesn't have a modern pedigree at this point. There's a lot of cards on here that have been in the format and haven't been particularly good. I mean, some of them have been good at times, but what we realized so we pick up the deck. It got 11th place at a GP before the event. We start testing it.
Yeah.
And neither of us were losing. We just keep beating everything we play against when we're testing this. And it was like, well, what is it about this deck that makes it really good? And it turned out that the secret was that it was just one of the best Oko decks in the format. It was really, really good in Oko mirrors. And as, when every deck is playing Oko, being good in the Oko mirror is kind of important. So as long as Oko's legal, I think this deck's going to be good.
Yeah, and who knows, there's, of course, Twitter's going crazy about ban Oko in every format, but for the time being...
Oko needs to get banned in Modern, but I agree with you. For the time being, yeah, this is good. This is good in that format.
So, yeah, I mean, the list looks, 3 Astrolabes. What can you speak to that? That one kind of just... I feel like if you're playing Astrolabe, typically you just want to play 4, right?
Well, so Astrolabe is bad. It's good in the deck in the sense that it is good at enabling specifically Ice Fang, Quaddle, and Oko, and Teferi kind of, right? Like, it is this permanent that, kind of enables the other cards we're playing. But the other cards are good on their own, and it was kind of a question of how much you needed to enable them. And we, as we're testing, we realized, the deck that we picked up originally had 2 1-drops. It had, I guess, Path to Exile, but I'm not really counting as a 1-drop, but it had Astrolabe and Hierarch, and we just very quickly established that the hands that had Hierarch were just miles better than
Nutter Butters.
Yeah, it was just not even close. And it's because this is like a tempo deck at its heart, right? It's not trying to grind you out. It's trying to get way ahead on board and just establish this on-board presence and use Force Negation to keep you off the board, just get ahead in Oko mirrors, all that type of stuff. So the extra mana on turn 2 is just a huge deal when you're talking about playing Oko mirrors. And the Astrolabes, we want to go down to 2. We didn't. I mean, if we didn't need it to enable Quaddle, we'd probably cut them all together.
Okay.
I'm actually experimenting with a build of the deck right now that's playing Boreal Druid instead to enable Quaddle. That card is not very good in the deck, but still trying to figure out if it's playable. You just kind of want the ramp. I'm kind of down on it, but it is a snow permanent, so it does turn on Quaddle. But point is the Astrolabe taking the turn off, spending the mana to not really get ahead on board, to not really do anything except set up later plays, isn't that great. Your mana is mostly pretty good, so you don't really need it to fix like you do in these all island Mystic Sanctuary decks that are trying to play 3 or 4 colors or whatever.
Yeah.
Your mana dorks fix all your colors, so as long as you play a turn on mana dork, you're not going to have issues. So I don't know. I could see 2. I can see 4 still. It is good when you're talking about grindy Oko matchups because kind of the parity issue with the card Oko is if you don't have a bunch of useless permanents to turn into 3/3s, it only makes a 3/3 every other turn instead of every turn.
Instead of every turn, right?
Yeah, you get behind. So that's kind of why it's there to some extent, is to just make Oko a little better. But mana dorks actually kind of work with this too, where you can just keep turning mana dorks into 3/3s. So I don't know. I thought 3 was right. I was happy with it for the event. I actually going back, I really wish I would have played 2 Astrolabe and then one more bird. But it is what it is. I think it was a fine number for the event.
Right on. How was the 1 Winds of Abandon in the sideboard? Did you ever get to
Oh,
overload it? And if you did you lose?
oh no. Okay, the Winds of Abandon was insane. I've actually found, side note, that it's also been completely insane in Vintage Cube
There
recently
you
for me, but
go.
that's, that's a different story. But yeah,
That's the Cube Freak podcast. Go check
yeah,
go check them out.
But yeah, no, the one of Winds of Abandon actually came up really clutch. I overloaded it twice on
Oh
camera,
my
actually.
god. That's
If you
insane.
go, uh, if you go look at like the day one videos or whatever, I'm playing a
Yeah.
grudge match against Dylan Donegan where the winner gets immediately sent to day two. The loser has to go play in a pod for their tournament life, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, and we had this kind of close game two, and then I overload a Winds of Abandon in the game. He just concedes,
Yeah,
just on
oh,
his
I mean,
spot.
yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Card's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I had a board. He had a board. Now he doesn't have any board. He'd
Doesn't.
already gotten a basic off my path, so he had one basic to get. It was like
Yikes.
it was gross. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was
Oh
sick as
man.
shit.
Cool. So Winds of Abandon can confirm is insane.
Yep.
So can you give us a peek behind the curtain of the SCG Players Championship in terms of like, are there any like little rivalries, or is it kind of laid back?
I would say for the most part, it's laid back. Like everybody there kind of knows each other.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you made it to this, you had to go to a bunch of SCGs, so we've
Yeah,
seen each
that's
other
true.
at events all year, right? But there is like rivalries to some extent, right? Like almost half the field was Lotus Box. Oh, it wasn't half. It was like a third of the field, or a little more than a third, was Team Lotus
Yeah.
Box, and then I think Team Nova put like 4 people in there, and I've also been working with Team Nova. So there was kind of this like team rivalry thing.
Sure.
But that wasn't really that intense. It's just like
It's like
I
Lotus
think,
versus Nova, kind of.
yeah. I mean that was kind of it. Lotus was kind of ahead. They put 3 people in the top 4, whatever. They
Yeah.
did very good.
They did very well. Yeah.
And they've done very good all year, honestly. But there is this kind of like unspoken I want to beat Lotus Box thing. At least for me, like I wanted to beat them, and it's because they're very good. It's you want to beat good players, and I got a shot, and it was cool for me. I got to knock 2 out before losing to a third. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. In terms of like rivalries, like players that generally don't like each other, and just like I don't think there's anything like that. Like we're mostly friends.
Yeah.
But there is like this, there's like a friendly rivalry. Like we all want to
Sure.
beat each other. We all want to win, right?
Absolutely.
Um,
I didn't know. I'm just trying. I'm trying to get the scoop.
no, yeah, it's totally, it's a
The
totally
dirty,
valid question.
the dirty scoop.
You would, honestly, like if I hadn't been there, and I hadn't been looking at it, I would kind of assume people like, talked more shit or like
Yeah.
were meaner to each other than they were. But honestly, like, I don't know. It was a very cordial event. Like nobody was like really mean to anybody else. Everyone like we were playing games in between rounds, like just out in the lobby, just
Oh, sure.
playing games because we're all friends. So, everyone has like everyone's better friends with the people they test with or whatever. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I don't think anybody there like strongly disliked anybody.
Right on. Yeah. Cool. I was curious because that was a question that I personally just wanted to know. So,
Sure.
cool.
I think we could see rivalries develop. Like for a rivalry to really start, there has to either be some bad blood somewhere, which can develop between people, but there just wasn't with this group of players at the PC, right?
Sure.
But it could also happen, with a series of wins or losses or whatever, right?
Against head to heads. Like if you lose
Yeah.
3 straight matches to a certain player or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like as we play against each other more, I could see rivalries developing. Like I don't know, this isn't. I would not call this a rivalry, but I had played against Collins Mullen 4 times previous, three times previous to the event, and then once in the Swiss of one of the pods, and I was 0-4 against him, and then I had to play him in an elimination match. and ended up beating him there. So that
There you
that
go.
kind of felt, like rivalry-esque. It's not quite there, but
Yeah,
that was cool to get the monkey off my back in an elimination match. So
absolutely. Cool. Um, so now we're going to talk a little bit about not modern. I'm sorry, Pioneer. The
sure.
preliminaries, the list just popped out. That it was on the 22nd. So these lists are pretty sweet. It's starting to look like this mono green ramp deck, this big mono green. For lack of a better term, I mean it's really just like an Eldrazi deck almost.
Sure.
This thing's looking pretty mean, and it's very difficult for blue-white control to really deal with. You have to counter their ramp spells and just kind of get lucky, honestly, unless we're playing Summary Dismissal. Yeah, I mean, this deck's pretty nasty. It tops out at like Ugin Spirit Dragon and Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, along with World Breakers and just like a bootload of ramp spells. Nissa's Pilgrimage and Hour of Promise. I mean, this thing is... I've played against it online quite a bit, and it is abysmal for blue-white control.
Yeah, you're gonna have a really hard time with that.
Yeah,
honestly,
it's basically like Pioneer's version of Tron, but we don't have Force of Negation.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's tough.
I mean, yeah, this deck looks insane. That was a 5-0 list. Here's another one that's Arclight Phoenix, so it's Izzet Phoenix. This deck, Brazen Borrowers, Crackling Drakes, Young Pyromancers. This deck can definitely grind. Jump in whenever you want.
Sure.
Feel free. Izzet Charms, Lightning Axes. Go for it.
I was just gonna make the point, like, go ahead and read these lists. I kind of looked at this earlier in the week and kind of came up with a solution for blue-white, but let's just keep going through these for a second.
So this deck obviously was eventually... I thought this deck was going to get there. We just had to get all the nonsense banned. Mm-hmm. And now this deck's like... this Izzet Phoenix deck is just like one of the best decks in the format.
I agree. I think the last question, we kind of touched on this earlier in the show about how they kind of got rid of all the offensive stuff.
Yeah.
In the format. The last question for me is like, are the cons delve draw spells okay? Like, question mark? We're gonna find out, I guess.
Don't take dig.
I want to leave dig. I'm with you. I don't want to see these cards go. They're some of my favorites to cast, but this deck is kind of towing the line with Treasure Cruise, if you ask me.
Oh, what, blue-white? Yeah.
No, the Phoenix deck. The Phoenix deck makes Treasure
deck.
Cruise look really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So then we have this kind of just like mono red aggro deck with Glory Bringers, Bone Crushers, which has been like insane in Pioneer. Being able to shock something and then get a big old 4-power dude out is real good, along with Torbrand, and it even plays Mizium Hoarders. Pretty hot.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bigger amount of red than we're used to seeing, but
yeah.
If you go back through the years of Pioneer, red has had some very, very good aggressive slanted mid-range cards. I'm thinking of Chandra and Glorybringer specifically, and there's a few others, but yeah, I mean, those cards are gonna find a home. Like, we've tried them in Gruul, we've tried them in Pioneer, we've tried them in. I mean, they dominated the standard event the standard format they were in.
Oh yeah.
I've seen red black decks play them in Pioneer. I've seen green red decks. Now this is a mono red deck. I'm sure Phoenix could play them if it wanted to. It could easily be a blue red thing. Like, those cards are just very good, and I'm not shocked to see them finding homes in different shows.
Yeah. I mean, Chandra is a house. I mean, really, Torbrand is just like insane. If they just get one crack with that, it could just be game.
Yeah.
And then we have this red-green deck with Domri, Anarch of Bolas, along with like Bone Crusher Giants, Goblin Rabble Masters, Legion Warboss. So we're playing 8 of the Rabble Master effects.
Yep.
That's pretty nuts. Love Struck Beast is obviously just like kind of a staple in this deck at this point.
Yeah.
Because you're playing Elvish Mystics. And
so something I want to point, because this is the Control Freak podcast, and we're looking at this from a control player's perspective,
absolutely.
Right? I will say that blue-white was kind of on everyone's radar going into these events, if we're being honest. Like, it had been doing quite well,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody knew it was in the top tier. It's not like I don't think everyone thought it was the best deck, but like you know that it's one of those decks you're gonna have to beat if you want to win an event. It's right there.
Yeah.
And if you go look at all these decks that are doing well, it's like they all have just an insane follow up to Supreme Verdict. Every single one of them. Like this one playing Collected Company, they verdict you because you put them in a spot where they have to verdict.
Yeah.
Boom. As soon as the verdict resolves, like Coco, put 2 more creatures on the board, untap, attack you, right?
Yeah.
Then the red one, it's got Chandra and Glorybringer, both insane follow ups to verdict. Um, the Phoenix deck. It's like you verdict them and boom, they're casting a treasure cruise and bringing back 2 Phoenixes from the graveyard, right? Like
Absolutely. That's
there's
brutal.
yeah. I mean, what you're seeing is like verdict is just so good. It's kind of defining what can be good around it, right?
Right. Um, yeah, and then we do have here. Here is a blue-white control. I mean, this
It's
thing's
Nassif.
is it?
Yep, that's Nassif.
Oh, right on. Yeah, Elspeth, Jace, 2 Narset, 3 Hero of Dominarias, 2 Time Ravelers, a Brazen Borrower, which I think is definitely like underplayed in this kind of deck and kind of overlooked.
I really want my blue white decks to have 2 or 3 Brazen Power.
It's really
Honestly,
good. It's
I think
really
it's so
good.
much. I think it's so much better than Azorius Charm. I understand that you have to play some number of Azorius Charm, and it's nice that it can help you get land drops. So I'm not against Azorius Charm,
Yeah.
but like I've seen people play like 4 Azorius Charm and like 2 other bad 2-mana removal spell, and it's like those should just be Brazen Power. Put some threats in your deck.
Yeah.
Like when blue white is so bad at eliminating other planeswalkers, like
So
just
bad.
incidentally just having a 3/1 flyer that can just attack a planeswalker, get off the table is just such a big deal in this deck and this format specifically.
One thing of note here, this isn't playing any detention spheres, which kind of only adds to that problem, but
Yeah,
I mean, they are playing 3 Hero of Dominarias, which is like that deals with planeswalkers, but
yeah.
real late in the game.
You can tuck him. I mean, you can Elspeth make some guys attack him, right? Like
Yeah.
he has counter spells to fairy tuck him, counter him on the way back down, right? Like it's not like he doesn't have answers to them, but like at the same time, this deck still just looks very weak to planeswalkers.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's I mean, historically that's just like
Well, that's always been like
the bane
yeah,
of
that's always been like
blue-white.
the nightmare of these blue white decks is like they put you in a spot where you have to verdict, you cast your verdict, they follow up with a planeswalker, and you lose to the planeswalker. Like that's tale as old as time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Here's another blue-white deck playing 3 Fairy Time Ravelers. No Jace, so and no Brazen Borrowers. And
See, he's got this one has the Blessed Alliance, and I hate those.
you don't
Like
like it?
I
I've
hate the
liked
Blessed
it.
Alliance.
I've
I
liked
don't
it.
mind. Like I like building life gain into your control decks. I know we've actually talked about that outside of the
Yeah.
cast. But
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of building life gain into your control decks, but you have 4 Absorb. It's not like we're lacking something that gains life. We have something, and Blessed Alliance is just too bad in my opinion. The card is just too inefficient in a format where Land War Elf exists, where it's just too easy for people to play around it if they want to.
Yeah.
And in that sense, I would just much rather have Brazen Borrower, something that can get a Planeswalker off the table. I will say though, in this list, I do love the cast outs. This one has 2 cast outs.
Yeah, I like
think
Cast Out a lot.
I actually like cast out more than I like Detention Sphere. I think Detention Sphere is fine, but not great.
It's
Like,
fine. Yeah.
yeah, being able to get Planeswalkers off the board at instant speed is a really big deal. And it pairs with cards like Dig Through Time, where you can, hold up mana and like absorb, right? You can like
Yeah.
hold up mana. You can either absorb their play or cast your dig or cycle, whatever, or cast out, or you just give yourself options on their turn, which I think is a better way to take this deck if you're so reliant on counter spells to keep their good threats off the table.
Yeah, and one thing too, they're kind of capitalizing on Gaia Reach with Narset. That's like a back pocket way to win, kind
Yeah,
of.
just a lock. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of that lock. I actually have played that in Modern, and I was a big fan of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've played it in Modern a bunch as well. Here's Elves, which is sure. They use Teamer Sabertooth to like bounce their Shaman of the Pact to just
Yep.
kill their opponent very quickly. Yeah, I mean this is a deck that's like pretty sweet. Whenever I was just started playing, I loved playing Elves, so it has a, place close in my heart. So
Elves is definitely sweet. I would not say though that it was more format defining, like some of the other decks we're seeing up here, like Phoenix and or Mono Red, and um, I
Yeah.
guess this is like a blue red. No, this
Yeah,
is Team
this
of
is
Wreck. Okay,
yeah. So
this is a
this
wild deck.
yeah, this is blue, green, wilderness reclamation. There's no obviously there's Nexus has been banned, but it's playing 4 Brazen Borrowers, 4 Frilled Mystic, 2 Gadwick, and 2 Gearhulks. I'm actually really intrigued by this deck because it still plays Growth Spiral and Supreme Will. That's a card that I've always wanted to play in Modern, but like it just isn't there in Modern.
No, you just have better options.
Yeah, but in this format, this deck looks sweet. Um,
Oh,
what do you
certainly.
think about this? Blue
This
green?
one this one looks like a good place to go. I'd be shocked if it shouldn't be playing Nissa.
Oh yeah,
Um,
the new Nissa.
yeah, I I think people are sleeping on that card. That
The
card,
card's nuts. The
I
card's
like.
absolutely nuts.
Yeah, speaking of cards that are insane follow-ups to Supreme Verdict.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't know, man. I played a blue-green ramp deck the other day, and just every time you put this on the table, it's just unbelievable, and it's
yeah,
just good against every deck you play against. So, I kind of feel like if you have Forest in your deck in Pioneer right now, and you're not playing Nissa, something's wrong. But I can see maybe the big ramp decks don't want it. I don't know.
yeah. It that card's nuts though. That is such a haymaker.
It is. It really
Um,
is. More
so
blue-white though. Blue-white
yeah,
seems to be everywhere.
more blue white. Yeah. Pretty stock build, I would say. They're playing 1 Blessed Alliance, 2 Censors, 1 Syncopate.
Hmm.
I mean, this is pretty close to stock. The sideboard looks pretty spot on too. So, and of course, all of this will be in the show notes below if you do want to like actually look with your own eyeballs. Let's move over to the other Pioneer preliminary because we're kind of getting down into the 3/2s and stuff. And
Sure. I
so
will say we've looked at a bunch of these decks, and like we know that this ramp deck is going to be something we start to see more of.
yeah,
Ugin seems like a very good card to answer, Phoenixes, to answer some of the rampy stuff, like the smaller ramp decks. You can just clean up a bunch of elves with a minus.
yeah,
And then Ulamog just seems, Ulamog and Oblivion Sword just seem like nightmares for the blue-white decks. So
yeah,
the ramp decks look like they're there. Um, we also have Phoenix, which is like a recursive threat deck. And then I think the next kind of tier for the blue-white decks to look at as competition for right now are the Glorybringer Chandra decks. I feel like we'll see more pop
yeah.
up, but
Like kind of the bigger red decks.
yeah. I mean, that's what I'm seeing right now. And so my initial thought was I wanted to build a deck that was better against these decks.
Yeah,
And I found Jeskai Control to be a better solution for control. I actually built a Jeskai Control deck. I've been playing with it. It seems pretty good. You got sideboard Pyromancers, young Pyromancers,
okay.
so that you can be better against these ramp decks. You can get on the board.
Can start to
You can,
clock them.
yeah, you can start to clock them. You can start to make them, force them into making plays into your counter spells, and they don't just have 6 years to set up their Ulamog, World Breaker, all that stuff that's just gonna eventually overpower you.
Yeah,
They just have to start jamming stuff into your counter spells, and that just makes the Pyromancer go quicker. So I like having this sideboard threat that takes over a game.
yeah,
And then when you look at the other cards, you get Chandra's Defeat, which is a really good way to kill red Planeswalkers and Glorybringer. And you get Magma Spray, which is a very good card
absolutely.
against Phoenix. And it just is a very important spot removal spell for a number of decks where they have, even like that black deck, the black aggro deck, which I still think is a good deck. We didn't talk
Yeah,
about it; it hasn't really shown up, but I still think someone's going to find a black aggro deck that is good, and it's going to be good based on the fact that its threats don't
there's
die.
so many recursive threats in that deck, and it attacks
Yep.
your hand. Like it's
Yeah, and that's another deck that's really hard for blue white to beat,
yeah,
and Magma Spray goes a long way to solving those issues. So I don't think it's that difficult to put red into blue white. It's just like the mana works. It's slightly worse, but it still works. And then you get some payoffs and some better spot removal.
yeah,
You get some other planeswalkers if you want them. I still think the blue white planeswalkers are the best, but you could play other planeswalkers.
yeah,
Uh, and then on top of that, we can also play Crumble to Dust if you want to hit the land that taps for 2 out of the ramp, set them back. But I don't think that's the right way to go. But it's
yeah.
it's a route you could experiment with. I think it's reasonable. But yeah, I really just like having Magma Spray and Abrade, and I also think Justice Strike's a really underplayed removal spell, and I
It was
like that.
that card was insane in standard, or is insane in standard.
Yeah, it's always been like one of the best removal spells in Standard. Honestly, it just hasn't like the shell around it hasn't been good, so it hasn't
Right.
really found a home. But I said before the last Pro Tour I played it that this is the best removal spell, and we just can't find the right deck for it.
Yeah.
And I think that was true. But I mean, Oko was the best removal spell, but second one. But yeah, I think people playing blue white right now, I think you can look at Jeskai as like a juke to it that's going to make the matchups that are popping up to punish blue white better matchups for you. I will say though that going Jeskai can make your blue white mirror matchup worse. But post board you get Young Pyromancer, which I think is very good in the matchup. So
Yeah.
maybe that's fine. I don't know. I
Yeah.
do like the combo of Young Pyromancer and Ojutai's Command though. I think that's a little sick synergy right there.
Yeah, oh my god, that's disgusting. So yeah, I mean, in this other prelim, we got the 2-5-0 decks were mono green ramp Eldrazi, if you want to call it that, blue white control, very stock list. They're playing a veto main. I'm not a huge fan of that, but and then yeah, other than that, this deck's pretty stock. And then we move into the 4-1s. We got another blue-white. And then we have green-red, like Questing Beast, aggro style decks with Domri Raid, blue-red Phoenix. I mean, the format is really starting to take shape. But this deck is one that I've played a little bit, and it's really fun. I don't know if it's there yet, but this is
I think it's
the
good.
Twiddlestorm deck.
Yeah, I think this is actually a real deck.
I want
don't
it to
know if
be.
it's
I
tier
definitely
one,
want it
but
to
I
be.
do think it's a real deck. I think, yeah, I agree. I don't know if it's actually tier one, like best deck in the
Yeah.
format type situation, and if it ever got there, it's like insanely easy to shut this deck down with
Yeah, they
Damping
just-
Sphere. But past that,
Oh my
I think
god,
the deck's
Dampening Sphere actually just kills this deck. Yeah.
the deck literally just can't beat it. Like
Yeah.
it has like the juke of this one Railstorm Conduit and 2 Expansion Explosion, where if you have all 3 of those cards, you can win the game, and they have no way to disrupt that package. But I mean, they do have some natural states in the sideboard. I don't know, maybe they can break it up, but I think
The problem is that your Lotus Field taps for 1 colorless.
yeah. I mean, they're just never gonna be able to beat a Damping Sphere realistically. Like maybe they have their one of answer for it, whatever. Sometimes that happens, but if that deck ever got too good, it would just get shut down by Damping Sphere, which is kind of the space it lives in. Kind of like how Dredge has been in Modern at times, where it can be really good, but then the weekend after Dredge won an event, you don't really want to be playing Dredge.
Yeah. And then we have more in the 4-1 bracket, blue white, mono green ramp, and more is it Phoenix. I mean, yeah, it's a bunch of the same at this point, but basically what I'm trying to say is this mono green ramp deck is probably public enemy number 1 for blue white, just because it is so damn good against us.
Yeah, it's really good.
And then of course the Phoenix deck and the red aggro decks. I would say the green red aggro decks are definitely in the meta, but I still think blue white is right up there with the big dogs in Pioneer.
Oh, I think Blue White's very good. I mean, kind of what I'm saying with Jeskai is like, there is clearly something here with this Blue White shell. Like, it is clearly tier 1.
Yeah.
There's something about it that is working in the format. The cards in its shell are powerful enough that they can win you an event. The question is, like, I think a lot of people will see Blue White and be like, okay, Blue White's good, I'm going to play Blue White. And I think that's the wrong approach. I think when you're picking up a control deck, you just need to realize, like, okay, what cards are good? Well, in this case, it's Supreme Verdict and the Planeswalkers and the card draw. That's good. But what isn't good about the deck? Well, the interaction. The interaction can be better in different shells. I mean, that makes your mana worse. There's a lot of give and take there, but like recognizing the parts of the deck that are very good and then tuning the other parts for your week in, week out expected meta, I think is what's going to make you successful in this format as a control player.
Absolutely.
And I think people need to do that more. I think they need to be like, well, hey, maybe this is a week to play Esper, or this is a week to play Bant, or whatever, Jessica, or go back to straight Blue White. Maybe we need Field Ruin this week, or maybe it's a good week to play 3 Archer Razka or something, something people aren't ready for. But, recognize the parts of the deck that are powerful and then, switch the other ones.
Absolutely. Yeah, you definitely have, and that was the thing is like at the beginning of the format, I had a lot of people like talking to me like, "Great, another format that blue white's not good in." It's like chill. This format needs to let's get it a little bit stabilized, and then we can try and attack it.
Well, I mean, you
And
need Field of the Dead to be banned. Field of the Dead is just not a reasonable card for control decks to beat.
yeah,
It's just,
oh my god, imagine that green deck. Yeah,
the green deck existed. I played against it at
yeah,
the Invitational where it had Field of the Dead, and it was actually beatable at the time. Like, I didn't play control, but it was beatable for the deck I played because I knew it existed. But like,
right.
it's just so egregious to print these cards that just have zero answers
Tacked in,
whatsoever.
yeah,
And like printing a land that's like this insane token threat in Field of the Dead is like I can see where you make that mistake, but it's like if you're gonna be printing cards like that, you need to be printing cards that are like Stone Rain or
yeah,
you know what I mean, or like Rain of Tears. Like there has to be more of that effect. Like Stone Rain and Wizards just doesn't want to print those type of cards because they're not good for Magic.
yeah,
People don't like playing against those cards, but then you can't print threats like that. Like
yeah,
it's one thing for your land to turn like a Celestial Colonnade, right, or like a Wandering Fumarole or whatever. It's one thing for your land to turn into a creature that they can kill with a removal spell. That's good for gameplay. That's powerful. That's actually fun. That's
yeah.
something that both decks can deal with. It's another thing for your land to make 30 power worth of 2/2s for like just land. Like it's just
Doing something that you are going to naturally do with no effort other than taking your turn and drawing your card and being, oh, it's a land, I might as well play it. Like,
yeah.
come on. Yeah, no, I agree. That card's egregious. Glad it's gone.
That was kind of the same thing with Oko, where it was just like, I mean, what the hell? Like, if you just printed some removal spells that kill this thing, we'd be fine, but you didn't, and now we're in this spot. Like, I don't know.
But Elder Spell.
Yeah, I get it. Like, Black had some removal spells, and I think if Fry killed Oko, we'd be in a lot
Oh my
better
God.
situation.
How does
But
it
the fact
not?
that the fact that none of these things work,
Fry, you had one job. Like,
yeah,
literally
Fry
one
never,
job. And
Fry never did his job.
moving on to this Modern preliminary. We're going to talk about Modern a little bit. I haven't talked about Modern too much on the podcast, but you did win. You did top four. I'm sorry. You did do well at the PC with that Bant Stoneblade deck. So we're going to talk about Modern a little bit.
Sure.
We got humans here. I mean, right at the top of off the rip, what are your thoughts on humans? I mean, it's been absent for the longest time, and now it's starting. I know Barone won his what was it, the Invitational? He was playing humans.
He did very good with humans there. Humans did not actually do well at the PC, but so it's funny that humans is the first thing we came to, because I think if you look at Modern objectively right now, it is absolutely dominated by control decks, or not control decks, but counterspell decks, I guess.
Yeah.
You'd say there's multiple Urza decks all playing counterspells. There's like a new version with Archmage's Charm popping up. The Bant deck I played was really big on counterspells, and then Shadow 2 to an extent really relies on Stubborn Denial. Shadow less so, but there's this wave of counterspell decks picking up, and I think the natural reaction to that in Modern is play Cavern of Souls, because Cavern of Souls is so good against counterspells, and that's what you see with this humans deck.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes sense. This is a deck that, I mean, at this point, is it even worth talking about blue-white control in Modern? It's pretty abysmal.
I mean, Bant control is actually a real deck in Modern. I think Bant Snow is just
blue-white
control with Oko, and that deck is actually good.
Yeah.
I would not talk about blue. I don't think blue-white's real.
Yeah.
I think the deck could be playing Oko. Like, if the deck could be playing Oko and isn't, then it's just not a real deck.
It's sad to say, but yeah.
I mean, it's sad. It really is sad to say, but like, go look on Goldfish right now. Like the top. Yeah, like if you look at the top 8 decks being played in Modern, 7 of them have 4 Oko in them. Like that's just where the format is.
Yeah. So taking a look at this next list, it's Mono Red Prowess coming back. We're talking Bedlam Revelers. We're talking Swift Spears, Runaway Steamkin, Soulscar Mage. Like this deck obviously had its time in the sun whenever Faithless Looting was around, but it's coming back doing some things.
Yeah, I still have a hard time believing that that you shouldn't just slam Oko in this deck. Like Oko's that good, but I do think that
Teamer mono red aggro.
Yeah, I like it's egregious to say it, but I think there's some chance that that's actually correct. It's probably not. I imagine this deck is a really hard time with just the 3/3 every turn, on top of something that can gain life on top of other spells. But
Yeah.
past that, it does seem to be having some success, so maybe it's good against it.
That's so funny. Just Oko in every deck.
Yeah.
Well, speak of the devil, here is Bant Snow. 2 Jason Mind Sculptors, 3 Okos, 3 Teferi Time Ravelers, Ice Fangs, Snapcasters, Verdicts. I mean, this is essentially a version of the deck that you played at the Players Championship.
Yeah, this is a more controlling take, and I think that is a fine route to go. Sort of like how I just spoke on Pioneer, where it's like, well, you got to recognize the cards that are good, and then you can tune the other parts. And I think that's what he's doing here.
Yeah.
That said, I want to point out the package of Oko Thief of Crowns and Ice Fang Quaddle is just, and Astrolabe to some extent, is just in all of the good decks in Modern right now. Those 12-ish cards are just being slammed everywhere, and it's a nightmare for any creature deck to battle through Oko and Ice Fang Quaddle. And that's why you see the creature decks trying to battle through those two things, and then the decks that play those cards just putting tons of counter spells in the deck outside of those so that they can, beat the stuff that could beat that package, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, if I was to sleeve this deck up, or a version of this deck, this would probably be pretty close to what I would do. I'm definitely on the more controlling side of things. So, yeah, I dig the Archmage's Charm. Like, let's go.
Archmage's Charm is sweet.
I'm so happy.
I'm a big fan of Archmage's Charm.
In the what's that Modern Horizons preview episode, I was like, this one could get there, and people were like, what? And I'm here to tell you, it has arrived.
No, I think the card's good. I actually bought foils the weekend Modern Horizons released. I thought it was
Nice.
one of those spec cards that was going to be very good, and it took a lot longer than my other specs, but it got there. It's here now.
I got one, so that's where
Sure.
I'm at. Yeah, and that was Mick Winsauce too. So he is a dedicated blue-white control player in Modern, and putting up good results here with Bant.
You see him playing Bant, and it's for good reason. That's 3 Veil of Summer on the sideboard. Just throwing that out there. Just three of them.
Takes off glasses. Wait, is that Cryptic Command? Oh no, it's Veil of Summer. Okay, cool.
Yeah, yep. Veil of Summer.
And then we have some Eldrazi-tron. That card, that deck's just been solid for the longest time, it feels.
There is this really weird push online. I see people talking about it on Twitter. I see all these grinders telling me that Eldrazi-tron is great. It's this awesome deck. And then I play it, and I'm just like, this deck is not nearly as good as they tell me it is. I do like that it's a Cavern of Souls deck, which I think is a good place to be in this format currently. But honestly, E-Tron is just not as good against Oko as you would want it to be. And outside of the blow them out with your All Is Dust, which happens 1 in 10 games or whatever, I just don't think the card's very good against Oko. Or the deck itself is very good against Oko.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just been around. It's just there.
It's always there. It's doing powerful things, and Karn TGC and Tron lands is a powerful shell.
Yeah.
And Chalice can be good, but I've played the deck in paper and it just was not as good against Oko as you'd want it to be.
Makes sense. This is a pretty interesting one. This is one that
Blue Moon, baby.
Yeah, Blue Moon back. Ral, is it Viceroy?
Ral is sick in Blue Moon. I played Blue Moon when KCI was still a deck, so beginning of the year.
So you look at 2 cards and you get to pick one. One goes in hand, one goes in graveyard, right?
Yeah,
That's
it's sleight of hand, but instead on the bottom of your library, it goes in the graveyard.
Yeah.
But the real thing is that it has this minus that can kill big creatures, which Blue Moon is really bad at doing.
Sure.
So that's a big deal, I think.
And then here's Canister. Of course, he's going to be playing the Urza deck, whatever you want to call it, Urza. Yeah, I mean, this deck is obviously great and just probably one of the best decks in the format.
This is where I'm going. You're saying you want to play the Bant Snow, and I have a hard time telling you that you shouldn't, but at the same time, you can just play that same deck that just has Mox Opal in it. You just get a free Mox, and I mean, this is kind of the same idea. It's a little different, but I will say that when all these decks are playing the same package, this Oko, Ice Fang Quaddle, Arkham's Astrolabe package. There's a bunch of different decks playing that, and there's a bunch of shells. And one of the big defining things is like, well, what is the best? Like, how do you make that package the best? And it turns out putting the best draw engine with it is probably the answer.
Yeah.
Putting the best draw engine, and I think eventually people are going to come to Force Negation with them. But the best draw engine and Force Negation. And to me, as much as I hate to admit it, the best draw engine I've found to this point is Emery and Mishra's Bobble, which sucks because I wish it was Jace. I wish it was Into the Story. I wish it was all of these things, but I keep trying stuff, and Emery Mishra's Bobble seems to be the best one. So I think, you're going to see these Artifact, Oko, Quaddle, Emery decks start popping up.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that Urza or Oko or any combination will finally... I don't like talking about bans, but because we're on Sunday, I almost talk about bans every week. I rarely talk about Modern, but what do you think? Do either of them hit a ban eventually, or?
Oh, I think Urza's fine. Urza's a 4-mana spell. I mean, it's really powerful, but 4-mana spells in Modern should be powerful.
Right.
But, that's kind of like when I don't know, beginning of the year, I was campaigning, like, Bloodbraid and Jace need to get taken off this ban list. It's egregious that they're banned. They're 4-mana spells in Modern. But you look at this deck, the cards that could get banned are Oko and Mishra's Bobble. Or not Mishra's Bobble, I'm sorry, Mox Opal.
Yeah.
Mishra's Bobble could get banned, but that's not really going to get banned. But that's an egregious card. But anyway, Oko, like, I would hesitate to tell you that a 3-mana Planeswalker could get banned in Modern, but Oko's getting there, man. Like,
it's dominating, dude.
Go look at Goldfish. Like, every single deck in the top 8 of most played decks has 4 Oko in it. All of them, except Etron. Just 4 Oko everywhere. Like, Infect, Oko's not even good at Infect. It's terrible at Infect. It doesn't fit with the plan. Infect doesn't want to interact with his opponents, and it's just so good that it just turns out, like, if you just have pump spells in your hand, Oko can just make all these bodies and you can kill him with it. Like,
oh my god, yeah.
It's nonsense, but it's just so good that, like, the deck plays 4, and it's just fine. Like, I don't know. Like, look at this.
Look at this.
Amulet Titan. Oko is terrible in Amulet. I played it as a sideboard card in the deck, and it's fine, but, like, now they just have it main, and it's good because Oko's just so good.
Oh, man, I love this. I love this. They're just ranting about... This is the Oko pod... Look, Oko turned this podcast into a damn elk, and here we go.
I mean, yeah, that's where we're at. Like, I don't know. Just, like, go look every deck in this format. Like, okay, here's a Blue Moon deck that I guarantee you would just be miles better if it was just still a Blue Moon deck that just splash green for Oko off, like, Astrolabe and, like, one Forest or something. And, like, it's not that hard to do. Like, you can play Blood Moon and Astrolabe. The decks, that's, like, very easy for the decks to do. Like, you're already playing basics because of Astrolabe. Like, I just have a feeling that these decks would just be infinitely better if they played Oko, and I think that would probably play out. I don't know. Kind of sick of the card. I think if there were more answers to the card, like there were more spells commonly played that killed it, it wouldn't be a big deal. But it's kind of in that Field of Ruin spot, or not Field of Ruin, Field of the Dead,
yeah.
Spot where it's just like the cards that should interact with this card just don't, and they don't print the cards good enough to beat it. So there's just no answers to it. And then, like, why aren't you playing it if there's this insane threat that has no answers to it?
Right. So kind of similarly to, do you think X card is bannable? Do you think it's time for Wizards to just bite the bullet and make a 1-mana exile target planeswalker spell?
I honestly don't even think that would be good enough.
Oh my god.
Well, the problem is like there are kill target planeswalker spells, and they're just not good enough because, like, you might play it in Modern right now. I guess they don't really exist to the extent that we would need them for Oko, right? But, like, I think there should be cards like that. I think it's heinous that they're like, you can play Stony Silence, but I can't play Turn Off Planeswalkers. And, like, yeah, there's Pithing Needle or whatever, and that's kind of the same thing, but it's
kind of
not really, right?
Well, what's the 6-mana artifact or whatever? The sun?
Oh, yeah, or Eternal Sun?
Something like that. Immolating, I don't know. But yeah, that card deals with planeswalkers, but it's 6 freaking mana. Like, that's way too late.
That's not even realistic.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
I mean, like, Pithing Needle and Sorcerer's Spyglass kind of are, like, the best thing you got. But I don't know. I just think that the colors should have like situational removal. Like I understand they don't want to print Heroes Downfall of 2 mana. Like I get that, but it's like really egregious to me that there's not like a white enchantment that says exile target creature or planeswalker with CMC 3 or less. Like that seems like a card that would have
No
printed in
brainer.
standard
Yeah.
years ago, and it just still doesn't exist because for whatever reason they just don't want to print answers to planeswalkers, and I mean you see them getting banned because of it, right?
Yeah. That card exists and it's called Prison Realm and it costs one more and you get to scry. So that's good, right?
Yeah, I mean, like the card kind of exists. There's like Glass Casket and
Yeah.
Silk Wrap, I guess, are kind of like cards similar to what I'm talking about, but it should just say Planeswalker and it should just still say 3 or less because like the 3 mana Planeswalkers are the broken ones because they're cheap and they're the ones that don't have removal for them. So it's like
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't understand why like the situational removal spells aren't good anyway. I don't understand why there's like not a slight upgrade to them. But yeah, I mean, it's
Fry's
what it
like
is.
going back to Fry. It's just not good enough. Why didn't
Oh,
it say 6 or
Pride's
why didn't
unplayable.
Fry is unplayable? Exactly. All right. So modern, basically Oko. It's an elk.
Yeah, I mean, for now, like I've tried a lot of stuff to get over it, and it turns out you should not be. I mean, it's mostly wrong to try and go bigger than Oko to try and get under Oko. You should just be playing Oko and trying to do Oko better. And it's just that's just the reality of the situation right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's that card's very very good.
The
And
interesting thing about that though is it actually does put control in a good spot. I think control decks like we saw that Bant Snow deck, and I think that deck is good. I think being able to answer Elks and draw cards is a real way to win Oko Mirrors. And I like having Abrupt Decay. I think having Abrupt Decay in your deck to just kill Oko, like that's the best way to do it. And I think there are control decks that could play the card. I've actually been experimenting with a Sultai control deck recently in Modern, and I think that could be a place I end up for, SCG Columbus in 2 weeks here. But just being able to kill Oko is a really big deal, and Abrupt Decay is the best way to do it. So,
yeah, there's no. I mean, can't counter it. It just dies.
yeah, I mean, if you play Sultai, you get to have your own Okos, and you get to kill theirs. What more can you ask for?
Yeah. No. I mean, that makes sense to me. So, yeah, we got some listener questions here that I wanted to tackle
Yeah,
real
let's hop
quick
in.
before we wrap this thing up. So here's a listener question. We got: how do you decide what the meta will look like, and then also, how does that help you decide what deck you're gonna play?
So how do I decide the meta? It's interesting. I mean, mostly I'm just playing on Magic Online, reading articles, looking at lists that win, and I've kind of been operating off of this assumption that people are going to pick the deck they would like the most from the popular decks. You
Sure.
can always just tell it's like the darling one people are talking about, and if you listen to popular Magic podcasts, like just pick any of them up, Game, Grindcast.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them. I mean, even Control Freak, right? Although you're probably just going to tell people control decks, but that's fine.
Gotta
I'm fine
spread
with
the
the control deck.
control propaganda, man. Come on.
Yeah, but if you just listen to the podcast, the things that are getting the most airtime are probably going to be the decks that show up the most.
Yeah.
And I've actually found some amount of success just metagaming against the things that people are talking about.
Yeah. No, I mean that's it seems so simple, but that makes a lot of sense. Um, and then we have another one here. In Pioneer Blue White Control, would you prefer to play more sensors, more syncopates, and why?
So given a preference, one or the other, I'd rather have Censor, I think. I don't really like either card, if I'm being honest, but uh, given, if I'm building a deck and I want these cards in my deck, or, one or whatever, I would rather play one of both than two of either because they're situational enough that you'd, I've seen people play 4 Censor, and I cannot get behind that. I at most want to play 1 Censor, and I want to cycle it and just kind of make them play around it
Yeah.
because it's dead so quick that it's just so often just bad opt, right? But the first one has a lot of value because they have to kind of respect it,
Right.
and I think the same kind of goes with Syncopate. Just having more of these cards, they see a Syncopate, oh, now they have to think okay, can I wait a turn? Will that let me play around Syncopate? Diversifying your situational counter spells, I think, is a really good place to be. And like, if I had four of them, I would go like one Sensor, one Syncopate, one Dovin's Veto, one Quench or something. Probably not Quench. That one's maybe not good enough. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would diversify them to, some amount, and then I don't know. I think that's a better way to approach control.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think we have to diversify. But yeah, and then the last question here of the cast: do you play any casual formats?
Does Cube count as casual?
I would vote yes.
Okay, then I play a lot of casual formats. It's just mostly Cube. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Vintage Cube. I like cubes that people have made themselves, although I don't like when they get too too cute, I guess.
Yeah.
Like I think it's really cool that someone built, like the mono blue cube, or like, the
Sure.
Grixis cube or the Bant cube or whatever cube. But for me, I'd rather have like,
All
all
five
five colors,
colors. Yeah.
like different archetypes, and I want there to be supported archetypes. I don't like cubes that are just
Random, basically.
they're just 250, or I don't know, 520 of my favorite cards, and just somewhat color, centered. There's like 100 of each color or whatever. But
Yeah. You want
I'd
like the
rather,
blue-red spells, or like the
yeah.
token deck, or like, yeah.
And honestly, it doesn't, like, I don't want any specific archetype. I just
Sure.
want there to be supported archetypes. So
Yeah.
like cool stuff you can do in that color, right?
Definitely.
Past that, I do have a commander deck.
You own a commander deck.
I do own a commander deck. I've played 3 or 4 matches with it. It is the Scarab God. The Scarab God is my general. And I don't think the deck's particularly good. I didn't spend a ton of time building it. It was more just like blue-black cards I like to play with.
Yeah, just something to kill time with, basically.
Yeah, but they're cards I enjoy casting. I think they're sweet cards. I think the card Mystic Confluence is really sick. I like draft it in every cube draft I can get it, and it's cool.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even think it's like great in Commander, but it's still sweet,
It's
and I'll
sweet,
play
yeah.
it.
I would like it to be in like Pioneer or even
Sure.
Modern. Just
Yeah, I actually wish it was. I mean, it's like the right power. Like a 5-mana counterspell, you can kind of do a lot with, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're never going to be that good. That one is close. It has a lot of modes, but
I just think
yeah, I
it'd be
don't know.
sweet just to have a fun of, right?
Yeah, sure.
Um,
But yeah, the Scarab God deck isn't good. I think I had a Mana Drain in there. I'm not even sure if that's legal, but I was playing a Mana Drain.
super legal. Yeah, I think so.
It is legal. All right,
I'm
heck
pretty
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Nothing screams broken like Mana Draining a big spell and then making a zombie with your Scarab God. I don't know, but I enjoy it. So that's when I'm playing Commander, it's probably behind the Scarab God.
Awesome. Hell yeah. I had Brea for a while. I just actually broke it up. So.
Okay, Bray's sweet. You can kind of talk me into anything blue, although I have found blue in Commander is not generally a great choice because people like to kill the blue guy.
Man,
But
instantly, especially Brea. They see Brea, they're like, all right, we're killing this guy.
is Bray, I don't know. Is Bray I assume Bray is like very combo centric.
You can make it, and I did make it very, very combo centric. So.
All right, fair enough. Then yeah, you're getting killed.
Yeah, which is why I sold it off.
Yeah, that's fair.
Cool. Well, yeah. Zach, thank you for coming on the podcast. If you want to do your housekeeping stuff and tell people where you can find you on your internet and all your articles and everything, so.
Sure. Yeah, I don't really write articles, but you can find me on Twitter at A22EN. Stay tuned this week. I might have some news for plans for 2020, but
Awesome.
we'll get to that when we get there.
Okay. No inside scoop here on the podcast?
Can't say anything
Okay.
yet, but
Dang, I thought I could get you.
I wish I could. I wish I could spill the beans here, but not my place to say anything. So
I gotcha.
but we do have some news coming up, I think, regarding
Awesome.
my plans for 2020, and you can find that on Twitter at A22EN. I might start streaming soon. I've been thinking about it.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see if I can find some Control players that want to watch me play some Control, but yeah, we'll see.
Stream at a different time of night than me, because.
Fair enough. I mean, mostly I just want to stream Cube because I have just been like absolutely tearing up the Vintage Cube. I've just been loving this format. So
Nice. Awesome, man. Well, thank you again for coming on, talking your Players Championship run and everything from this season and moving into next year, and of course breaking down Modern and telling us how awesome Oko is.
Oh my God, I cannot wait for that card to be banned. I know he's talked about it, but Jesus, get rid of it, please.
But yeah, everyone who's listening and watching, thank you for clicking on the video or clicking play on the podcast. I do appreciate it. This is the 30th episode. This is a big episode here. You know, this will be the second to last episode before the new year, heading into 2020. I'm definitely not slowing down. Still going to be a weekly podcast and everything. Additionally, I've been streaming a lot. I have a stream schedule. All that stuff will be in the show notes and all that stuff. And of course, I do have the Patreon. If you do want to check that out and help support the cast, check that out. And additionally, I just wrote my very first article. It's over 3,600 words. It's over on cardknocklife.com. It's about blue-white in Pioneer, so go check that out if you want. But yeah, everybody, thanks for hanging out. Zach, you have anything else to say?
No, man, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. Anytime, you're welcome. You're a great guest. You always have great insight, and I definitely appreciate you.
Yeah.
Additionally, head on over to Apple Podcasts. Give it a 5-star review. I don't want any 1 stars or 2 stars. That's nonsense. Just tweet at me and tell me how bad it is. Don't mess my analytics up.
Well, you're welcome to go 5-star and then tell him how bad I was as a guest. Actually,
there you go.
If you want to just roast me the whole time and leave a 5-star, that's actually pretty cool.
Oh, okay. Well, we always have fun, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, as always, Magic players, thank you for hanging out and listening to us rant about blue-white. As always, be kind to one another, Magic players. Have a great night.
See you guys.